Hello, and welcome to a series where I read short, spooky stories. The Doll That Remembered. Emma loved antiques. She spent her weekends scouring thrift stores, looking for forgotten treasures. One afternoon, she found the doll. It sat on a dusty shelf, its porcelain face pale and cracked, its glass eyes an eerie shade of blue. The faded dress hung loosely on its small frame, and its painted lips curled into the faintest of smiles. There was something unsettling about it, but Emma couldn't explain why. Still, she bought it for a few dollars and brought it home. That night, as she placed the doll in her dresser, she noticed something strange. The doll's head, which had been tilted slightly to the side when she bought it, was now perfectly straight, staring directly at her bed. She laughed it off. I must have set it down weird. But as she turned off the light and crawled under the covers, she swore she heard something. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper. Her heart pounded, but she told herself it was nothing, just her imagination. Until the next morning, when she woke, the doll was no longer on the dresser. It was sitting on her nightstand, its glass eyes inches from her face. Emma's breath hitched. She lived alone. No one had moved it. Slowly, she picked up the doll and placed it back on the dresser, facing the wall. That night, she locked it inside a cabinet, but when she woke the next morning, it was in bed beside her. Emma screamed, throwing the doll across the room. Its porcelain face cracked even more, but the painted smile remained unshaken. She tried to get rid of it. She tossed it in the trash. It came back. She burned it in the fireplace, only to find it sitting on her bed, untouched the same night. Panicked, she did research, searching for any clue about the doll's origins. Then, she found an old newspaper article. The doll had belonged to a little girl named Eleanor Wright. In 1923, Eleanor vanished from her home. Her parents claimed she spoke of a woman inside the doll who whispered to her at night. They dismissed it as childish imagination. Then, one morning, Eleanor was gone. The only thing left behind was the doll. Emma's hand shook as she read the final lines of the article. The doll was donated to a local thrift store in 1957. Emma slammed her laptop shut. That night, she barely slept. She kept the lights on, watching the doll from across the room, but exhaustion finally took over her, and her eyelids grew heavy. Just before she drifted off, she heard it, a whisper, right beside her ear. I remember you now. The next morning, Emma was gone. The only thing left behind was the doll. And it was smiling.